There we go. Hello. I am beginning my stream now. There's no people watching, so if you're on replay crew, just kind of fast forward. I'm getting things set up, and we're going to be talking Larry Millete today. The trial is over. I experienced closings and the verdict. I am streaming on YouTube and Twitter right now, so I'm gonna go live on TikTok as well. I have my phone up here. I have like quite the setup today, and lights if we need them. So I'm going to go ahead and go live on TikTok. Here we go. Hey TikTok. Okay, I'm live on TikTok. All right. So sometimes I might glance up there to TikTok, and I also I'm gonna be reading from my iPad. We're gonna go over my newsletter and my tweets. Hey, Mary Alice. We're gonna go over what I wrote, which if you're not on my newsletter, you should be. I'm gonna be like putting all of my Twitter. At the end of the trial, towards the end, the last week or so, I was getting all my tweets from the day and putting them in an email and sending them out so people who weren't on X or just wanted to read easier could, and it would be an email. It would be readable, right? They could experience the live updates, even though it's not live. If you're not a part of that, you can go to my website, maggiewinterton.com. I can probably just put it in the chat too. Maggie Winterton, it's not going to be a link. MaggieWinterton.com has everything. It'll get you to my X. It'll get you to the newsletter. You can sign up there. Hello, people on TikTok. We're talking Larry Millete. We're just getting started. So you can do that. I am going to be reading from there. But, and as people come in, we're just ramping up here. I want to talk. I want to just talk to you. One thing during closings, and actually it began at jury selection, Miss Sabatini, the defense attorney, said that in Hawaii, where she's from, they say that they talk story, right? They like talk and ask questions and talk story. So I want to just talk about this experience of this week. It's so big. It's the energy, just everything coming to a climax. Everything that, oh, I gotta go on Do Not Disturb. Shoot. Don't disturb me. Okay. Sorry. Hopefully TikTok is working. Let me know if it's not. It's just, yeah, so I was going to finish my thought. That reminded me. MaggieWinterton.com. Sign up for the newsletter, and I'm going to be compiling all of my live tweets from the whole entire trial, like all, 20 whatever days. I lost count. So I will be sending those out. So please sign up. And there's going to be other things. I'm not done with this case. I am not done with the Larry Millete trial. I'm not done with the Maya Millete case. She's still missing. And Larry is not even sentenced. So I do know, I was told that, hello everybody. I was told that sentencing is July 20th. I'm 100% sure that that's what it is, but I'm going to check my planner anyways. Yeah, July 20th. Mari Crease, I was told, said that in a prayer group today. So that will be the sentencing, and I will go, and I doubt I'll get in the courtroom, but I'll be in the overflow and do live tweeting and stuff. So just you want to be around for stuff, okay? There's going to be some cool stuff. After the verdict was read, I went down and I looked for jurors, and I had some friends who helped me get my card out to people, and it's looking like I'm going to interview a juror. So, yeah, that would be huge. It would be like a large sit down chat, like on YouTube, like this, and we would just have a conversation and maybe take audience questions. And I'm going to do it like I have been this whole trial, doing interviews, doing things differently, not the way that mainstream media does. I'm going to be doing independent reporting. And I don't know how to explain it, but I just really want you guys to be there and see it, because I think I can do something cool and useful. Thank you so much, George. Thank you. So we've got some people on TikTok. That's good. All right, I'm going to take a breath here. Everybody's coming in. Thank you, guys. Yeah, I'm going to be struggling to find words, I think, during this video, because here I go. It's such a crazy experience. It's like so big. Like, I explained God to my daughter as like he's just so big. Like, God is so big you can't even imagine that with your brain what God is. That's what this experience was like, because there was so much going on the whole time from the moment I walked in the courthouse. I'm walking into the courthouse, and one of the first things I see is Christy Bowles, the prosecutor, and I ran into her, and she was so stressed, and she was alone. And that was the first time I really was ever seeing her without a entourage of other prosecution team members and interns. And she was just rushing, and I think she was heading to the elevator. And I said hi, and she said hello. That, carried the whole time. So many people arriving. I got there before cameras were setting up, thank goodness, because I just didn't want to be on camera if I didn't know, really. I ended up being in the background of some interviews when I was just kind of milling about after the verdict, because jurors did do videos with mainstream media. And yeah, that's what I mean. It is out there, and I encourage you to watch those interviews. Larry's parents did a short interview, but I just want you to know, going into whatever I do with a juror will be different. And I hope I can bring something cool to you. I'm really excited about it, but this has been an experience that I didn't imagine. Not to talk too much about myself. I'm just trying to explain what it was like on verdict day, and the whole week. Even the whole week starting was very anticipatory, right? I'm gonna struggle with words tonight, guys. I'm sorry. It's the vibe. Just it's a lot. It's a lot. There's so many feelings all at once. Okay, everything, all the feelings all at once. That's what we're talking about. And people who are working hard, people who are exhausted, people who want justice, people who want some relief, people who are still just overcome with emotions and sadness. Have I been following since 2021? Yeah. Yeah, because I lived here and it was really hard to miss because Maya's family did such an amazing job of getting it out there in the news. So, hello, TikTok. Let's get started. I kind of talked about the energy, and I'm going to be just vibing with you guys as well. We're going to go with this. I'm going to use my notes to guide me, but this was a very important time for a family. I want to choose my words carefully. I want to be respectful. There's a lot. If I read, it would take hours and hours to read all of my tweets. So definitely, like, if you want to go to my ex, which is at Millete Trial. Otherwise, they're out in the newsletter. But it would take too long. So I'm not going to read all the closings. We're just going to kind of go over the important parts and things that I noticed and things that you're not going to see at other news, right? Because that's what all I'm trying to do is like bring information to the people of San Diego and beyond, people who are interested and care and what they want to know, just getting them what they want to know because there's no cameras and it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Like, people really care. All right. So, closings started. I got there at 7 a.m. and I did not anticipate a line of like 15 people outside the courthouse already. Some of them were there for like unrelated stuff. But a lot of people, a lot of public, a lot of people I hadn't seen before. We had like, and the whole time, right? Like, there's been just newer people here this week. There's been federal agents, like the entire DA's office. So many people, more members of the public because people care, right? Like, and this is why I'm doing it and why I am tweeting and why I'm doing this too, so you know what's going on. All right. So I got there at 7 a.m. I ended up in the overflow room, which was fine. We got on the record. I'm just reading from my iPad now, kind of, using this to guide me. So we expected, this was on Tuesday, we expected to go right into the jury instruction readings, but we did not. What happened was, like, they were on Monday supposed to do all the jury instruction, like, arguments and everything. What I think they spent the entire time on, this is a closed session. Otherwise, I was gonna try to be there. I just ended up not working out, but it was a closed session. They were arguing, prosecution and the defense, over the charges, the actual charges, because Larry Millete was charged with first degree, and then he got the lesser includeds that are like underneath as possible like options. There's second degree there is this a word YouTube would censor? I don't know. There's manslaughter, involuntary manslaughter, and all of those have different definitions. Christy Bowles on Monday reportedly left the courthouse very upset, and we didn't know why. And that was because Larry Millete got all of those lesser included. So that just gave him a chance to have like a lesser charge if the jury wanted to do that, which we know that's not what they ended up doing. If you're here, but it could have, and it was very complicated. Anyways, that's what they were doing on Monday, and then they had to do other things. Now, I said at the end of the prosecution case, I thought that the defense would raise a judgment of acquittal motion, but they actually made that literally on the day of closings. And I mean, I don't know if they just weren't ready before or what, but it just like no one wanted to hear it really. The vibe, okay, we're all about the vibes here, explaining. The vibe was low. It seemed like the judge was like, okay, get it over with for the record. Even Miss Sabatini kind of seemed like over it. Kind of seemed already defeated as she makes the motion for judgment of acquittal. That's the same thing as directed verdict in other states. It's when the prosecution, like, if they fail to meet their burden, it rarely happens, but pretty much in most, like, serious cases, the defense is going to be like, hey, we think the state hasn't met their burden. This should not even go in front of the jury. Your Honor, like, just find them innocent for these reasons. But so Miss Sabatini argued that on Tuesday morning, and that took up quite a bit of time. I'll kind of go through it. She said, the people have not proved their case beyond a reasonable doubt. They have not produced a location, a crime scene, if Mrs. Millete is even deceased, a body. There's only a speculative location. I got some quotes here, but she spoke really fast. She said that there was conflicting evidence between the cell site pings. She said that motive for Mr. Millete the entire time has just been to keep his wife, like not to kill her. She said he wanted to incapacitate her, referring to the messages to the spellcasters. He wanted to incapacitate her, and she said, out of desperation. That word's been used a lot with this case in the courtroom, by the defense mostly, but it's just like, Larry was so desperate. Larry was so desperate. And that's definitely what you saw as the evidence. That's just a fact, really. Like, things ramped up. They did. Like, the spellcaster messages, urgency, Maya was gonna file for divorce. So Larry was getting desperate. Okay. Sabatini says there are no cameras to show all exits out of the Millete home. She brings up the drainage ditch and how one would not be able to see her leave in the dark. She says the case is entirely speculative. There's no body. Mr. Millete stripped naked, and he didn't have a mark on his body when he spoke to police. And she brought up how leaving the country is not tracked. She said you can walk out of the country or drive, and there's absolutely no way to tell if she crossed. Then she moved on to the poisoning. She said it defies logic that someone would be so smooth to cover up a murder, but so careless to leave the murder weapons, the vials of hemlock, or one had conine. We don't really know what exactly was in both of the vials, but she said one of these little vials with plant material was found sitting with children's bubbles. She said it's reasonable that one of the kids collected the plants and put them in the vial. She says we also don't know how old the contents of the vials are. And she's like, we don't even know how much conine it would take to kill someone. Yeah, so that's kind of the bangs. It defies logic that it is, and it's speculation. 7 to 9 gunshots would make, I probably can't save that on YouTube or TikTok. 7 to 9 bangs would make a messy scene, holes in the walls. And she's like very, she was very animated, like, she's a good speaker, she tried to be persuasive for sure, but she did kind of seem like it was kind of just for the record, kind of going through the motions. And then she said that she even had an issue with how Bowles turned over some discovery. Oh, wait, sorry, I skipped one. And then she went to Bowles. Bowles got to like argue against, and she said that there's significant circumstantial evidence to prove the case. There's video of Maya entering the house and not coming out. She was getting a divorce, and Larry told the spellcaster he wanted Maya incapacitated for all eternity. And then she was like, and the next day she disappears. So the judge denied that motion. He says there is substantial evidence, so that didn't go through, but it's for the record. Then Sabatini was talking about how Bowles turned over some evidence in a way she didn't like, and there was just like a lot of like eye rolling between both of them. Little, snipes like always. Joyce, hi, Grandma Joyce. It's not a new charge. It's been there the whole time. Okay, so I don't know if I can click on this, and there is a charge, a weapons charge. That's initially like what he got arrested with. So it's been there, but they bifurcated it during. Yeah, it's bifurcated. It will be addressed at the next hearing. He didn't, or the defense, I should say, didn't want to try both charges at the same time. So then they talked about it at this sentencing too, if he wanted to like have this jury decide it as well, but he waived his right to like have this jury decide that charge as well. So that will be coming up. Yeah, so it's been there. It's I don't know how that's gonna affect everything, but it kind of goes along with the sentencing. All right. Good question. Where was I, Grandma Joyce? Yeah, they were fighting. They were all catty, and they were talking about Jeep photos being admitted. Bowles says she wasn't trying to subvert the judge's ruling about limiting photos. And Sabatini then was like leaning back in her chair, like, all right, whatever, okay. So that was interesting. That kind of defeated, low energy vibe going on. Then we went through talking about some jury instructions. It's, really tedious. So there's Bowles even said, again, I don't know why we're arguing about this now, right before closing arguments. And there was just some issues there. So then I wrote, after this, we'll listen to 45 minutes of jury instructions, all polished for us. Jury is still waiting to even start. It's 9:43 a.m. and we usually start at 9. So then they started talking about like case law. Mr. Ryan started arguing too. Oh yeah. So I hate to say like sides, but supporters of Maya, supporters of Larry wore different colors to show like their support. So Maya was green. A lot of people were wearing green on verdict day also. It was really cool. But Larry, he did have some of his family, and his lawyers in maroon. So, and I confirmed it was supposed to be maroon. They didn't all quite have the same shade, but yeah, they were all doing that to show togetherness, I guess. Who was low energy? The defense team. The defense team became like low energy. Like, I just sensed it. Like, even starting during their case, they've seemed kind of like over it. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's the jury's, what they think the jury is reacting to or what. Oh, hello, everybody on TikTok. Okay. I really don't want to make this ages long, so we're not going to go through that. And I don't think you guys want to hear the jury instructions, because when I watch trials on TV, like, I hate that, and it's boring, and it's 45 minutes, and I'm not going to read it as good as Judge Camarena did. Like, he had stuff on screen. I think it was a PowerPoint. I couldn't see the screen because I was in the overflow, but he could read, and he's a great speaker to the jury. Like, it was not boring. Like, it was actually good. But on my Twitter or in my newsletter, all of the jury instructions are there. But basically, it's just like, you can't be biased and stuff like that. But it is helpful, I think, for them. Let's see. So then we got to closings, and Bowles, how it went was the prosecution goes, and then the defense goes, and then the prosecution had a rebuttal. Okay. I don't know how I scrolled this far down. I apologize. I was like, nope, that's all jury instructions. Okay. The judge was like, okay, we can stretch and have a sip of coffee or water while, Bowles sets up for closings. We didn't take a real break. It was just like a couple minutes of like, just like chill time. They didn't get the candy bowl out or anything. The jurors didn't get the candy bowl out. Which, like, I don't even know how much candy they got to have. Was there a lot of candy left over? I don't know. Okay. What instructions stood out? No need to go over all of them. This one. People must, okay. Defendant, if they're guilty of first-degree M, they deliberately gave Maya Millete poison, and when giving the poison, the defendant intended to cause her death. The people must meet this burden. If not, it could be second-degree M. Voluntary manslaughter is a heat-of-the-moment crime, acting under provocation. Involuntary manslaughter is heat-of-the-moment crime and acting recklessly with knowledge of the risk, but the defendant doesn't act with intention or disregard for human life. And it is up to the jury to decide how to come to their verdict, but they must all agree on one charge. So it says, that's pretty much, that's common sense. But that, which side brought the candy? The court. I don't know if Judge Camarena, was like, let's make sure the jurors have candy, but the bailiffs were in charge of the candy bowl. And one time, they refilled it. They had bought a big bags. I don't know who, it was just there. So I did not get candy. It was for the jurors and the family. Not the whole gallery, but I thought that was cool. I really liked Judge C. Okay. Bowles begins her closing argument. Maya Millete would not, could not, and did not leave her family voluntarily on January 7th, 2021. Bowles says that May was unhappy in her marriage and she stayed because Larry made her scared to leave. He isolated her, controlled her, and used her fear of losing her children against him. When May decided to leave, he paid others to try to control her, Bowles says, referring to the spellcasters, to prevent her from leaving the house. Then she disappeared from the face of the earth. May Millete is dead, and the defendant killed her. Very powerful beginning. And, oh, like, I was even in the overflow, but just thick with anticipation and the seriousness. You know, it's just, it was a very heavy vibe. Just not at all like, you know, the courtroom during the trial, which was like chill and we had candy, like whatever. So, okay. Bowles asks what the pages in the spellcaster binders show us. She said, not often seen, pulling the curtain back and seeing what was actually going on in Larry Millete's head. And what did we see? We saw the person that May Millete saw. May Millete saw. We got to see the man who controlled her by capitalizing on her every fear. I'll never let you leave me. If you leave, they'll never find you. Brought up that quote. Bowles encouraged jurors to look through all of the 17 binders of spellcaster messages. They obviously did not because they only took 6-ish hours to deliberate, but I believe they did look through them. Bowles was like, this is only some of them. We only showed you some. There's so much. Go through and you'll see his mindset. Then she said that Maya was flawed. She was human. She said May Millete was a human being. Yes, she lied about the affair, that she had an affair, but that ultimately she was human. And the affair, she said, was May being exposed to a caring man instead of a narcissistic person who only cared about their own goals. All evidence points to the fact that she was disappeared. Remember, in Glamis, to her sister-in-law, she said, if something happens to me, it's Larry. And that was on the New Year's trip right before she disappeared. Then she kind of went over the timeline, right? And we can't possibly go over it all. But like I said, it ramps up. January is a lot of stuff. 17 binders, large binders actually, really thick ones. There was a whole rolling cart. Okay. I don't know exactly. I'm just, going to see what we kind of can pick out. This is, I'll pick out quotes. Yeah, so January 7th is when May called the lawyer's office for divorce. And Bowles brought up, which this was something I had forgotten about because it was really early in the trial. She brought up that the receptionist sensed some red flags for problems, and she offered, May to come in, or if she needed help, with her husband. And May said that nothing would disrupt this upcoming weekend with her children. And she said all signs of life for May ended on January 7th. A woman full of life is just gone. So, then she kind of just talked about some practical stuff, how to go through evidence. And then that's where my first newsletter ended, because I had to split it into two because that was 3,000 words. Okay. The next day I sent out the rest of the thread. Bowles brings up Maya's quote, "I should have left a long time ago." She actually said that like a lot of times to different people. A lot of the trial was bringing people in who like all said very similar things. Larry and May talked about custody with the children, and he wanted 100%, and that was an element of control that Larry used with her. Financial control was another thing she talked about a little bit. She said the only reasonable conclusion that you have proves that Maya Millete is deceased. She brought up she had intentions to go to Big Bear on Friday. She had plans. There was no indication that she planned to leave her house or children, and the phone data indicates that all activity terminates at the house. She kind of goes over that data, the cell data, and she says she had no financial means to even leave, because on January 4th, she's talking to someone in text about pawning a Louis Vuitton bag, and she said, Bowles says Maya had no money to go anywhere and somehow start a new life behind, and there are a bunch of things left, things of value left behind. And this is sad. She brings up the last purchase that Maya made, which was rubber duckies to give out to the Jeep community, because that's something that Jeep people do. Like, I don't know much about it, so I don't want to say the wrong thing, but like, they leave ducks for each other. It's a thing. And Maya was like, she talked about how she was really excited to be part of the Jeep community, and her Jeep was like new. And so the rubber duckies was her last purchase, and Bowles says this is intention to live. And I thought, what a like really good point there with something that might seem insignificant. What a good point that's like who she was gonna give out Jeeps in Chula Vista. I mean, she was gonna give out rubber duckies to Jeep people in Chula Vista. So yeah. So that was it hit me in particular. Okay, so she talks about January 8th. He leaves in the Lexus and he's gone all day. And like, that's weird. And there was a frenzy of digital activity before January 8th with all the spellcaster messages and like talking to people for help, like a frenzy of activity. And what happens on January 8th, she says, no one can find him. So that is true. Like, it all abruptly stops. It's a very like strong piece of evidence. Yeah, I'm gonna scroll because otherwise we'll be here all day. Bowles says that Larry controlled May throughout 2020 by making her take those selfies, and he saved them and put screenshots also of tracking Maya and talking to her friends. That was on the hard drive. He stole her journal. He infiltrated her communications, didn't let her have any privacy, and all the while she's just trying to be a good mom. Then it was lunch. We start back up with the topic of Maya moving out in May 2020. Bowles says that she still communicated with her kids and had her normal job and life. Everything like was fine. Like she went on with life. She just didn't live at the family home. She lived with her brother and sister-in-law, Genesis, who had a very, very important testimony because of that. And she only lived there about a month, if you remember. But it was a good point, I thought, too. Like, she communicated with her kids and yeah, like, it was normal. So why would she feel the need? It brings up the question, right? Like, well, yeah, she was capable of like living on her own. She tried it out, and the only reason she came back is because Larry caught her in the truck with Jamie Laird, and then they were like, she was like shamed and into like moving back in. You know, it's that's the story. We don't. I mean, she says shame a lot. She says that Maya felt a lot of shame. Maya talked about feeling shame, and Maya loved her job, and she was good at her job. Bowles said it's just another important thing that was important to her. Not only would she not leave it, important as a piece of something in her life, it says it's important as a piece of something in her life that the defendant would go after. I would argue he shamed May back into submission, back into the house. And then this quote, this is from Maya. I feel like everyone decided everything was fine now, but I'm going into the arms of the wolf I escaped from. And then she said, when it's easy for him to put his hands on me. And that was after she moved back home. I need some water. Okay. Talk about the door incident and how like Larry was trying to get to Maya when Maya was in the office or her bedroom, like, and he like punched a wall through the door. Christine Timmers said that she could hear pounding when Maya called her. And there was a photo that was accidentally posted on Facebook. And one of the friends testified that, you know, she saw that and was very concerned about that. So that's, you know, a very important thing to keep in mind as we consider like violence. Yeah, I'm going to scroll a little bit here. Sorry. Oh, yeah. So I didn't have that at that. What I mean is, Larry went after her job. Bowles said that. She was referring to, like, Larry threatening and doing the whistleblower account and trying to mess up her job. And so she, you know, that kind of like intimidation continued. He sent an email to May that had a news article about, it was about someone losing their job for having an affair, and they were like a federal worker, and the email had a note from Larry, and he said he was so tempted for Jamie, so he wanted to, you know, get Jamie fired. August 27th, 2020, this is important. She said, let me find my peace. I can't find it with you. And then later that day, she sent a sample childcare schedule. And Larry said, I can't accept this. Bowles said, as we know, then his tactics intensify because now it's starting to get real. And then there's a lot of, after that, there's a lot of spell casting and the subliminal messages. Bowles says that a lot of the evidence, especially like stuff on the hard drive, are breadcrumbs that paint the picture. That's not a good metaphor, but she definitely said that they were breadcrumbs. In the iCloud account for Maya, there were breadcrumbs like a screenshot of a subliminal message playing on an iPhone. Larry told Genesis that May thinks he is trying to keep her in an invisible cage. Bowles brings this testimony up and says that In fact, May did feel caged. Larry asked a spellcaster to cast a death spell on his behalf at one point. He was searching for a death spell, and we know that Larry said to Maya's brothers that he wanted to get the other guy. Now, I don't want to I just want to clarify. He never searched for a death spell for Maya specifically. It was towards, Jamie. So, but she's talking about how there's the capability for it, the desire for death, that he would go there, I guess. So I just want to clarify that there's no death spell for Maya that he searched for or bought. The only things, the serious things towards the end were, that he wanted to incapacitate her. He wanted her to be sick. He wanted her to be in the same bed with him for all eternity. So, you could infer things from that, certainly, but there's not I want to kill my wife. There's not those messages. Otherwise, the prosecution, that would be Exhibit A. Oh, yeah. So, Fawnville, Larry's boss at the Naval Hospital, he had deleted messages, and one of the deleted messages on his phone was from Larry, and it said, "I'm about to lose it." An expression of an intent to kill, Bowles says, is, "I want her to sleep in the bed for all eternity." She says, "We don't even need a mind-reading machine. These messages tell us everything that he was thinking, and everything he did had a single purpose: control." Bowles says that there's a huge amount of motive in this case. Everything he did sent May a message that he wanted to control her. He was going to lengths to sabotage her with a fake whistleblower account. He was tracking her, appearing in her window at work. There was, spying. Always wanted to know where she was. The selfies to see what she's doing, who she's with. After Jamie and May were found in the truck, Larry asked May's brother 3 different times he could help him get the other guy. He was focused and he was thinking about killing. "There are 3 paths," Larry texted to Genesis. "One with us being together and working through this process. One with us not together, working together for the kids. And one where I hurt Jamie really bad and it's game over." Bowles says this is premeditation. Then we kind of talk about the hemlock, and she says that arguably when he was Googling for hemlock, he was looking to kill and make it look like a suicide, because he also Googled stuff. Oh, I probably can't say that word on YouTube. From now on, I will just say a S. He Googled fatal amount of sleeping pills, and Bowles says that he is looking for a fatal amount. But yeah, he was searching for a lot of stuff about death, but kind of implied S. "I'm willing to sell my soul," Larry told Genesis. That was about a spellcaster. And Bowles said this is intent. Oh, yeah, here we go. Bowles says in December, Larry is still premeditating. He's looking for ways to incapacitate his wife. and he was looking for Rohypnol, and he Googled, "Make my wife my sex slave." When this was read, now you're not supposed to, this courtroom, you're supposed to be quiet in the courtroom. People gasped. They were like, oh, like a scoff. No, I'm sorry. This is a good point. I'm sorry. I have to be careful. I'm trying to summarize stuff. Bowles implied S. No, I'm just saying the things like the searches kind of imply self-harm. And Bowles is saying it wasn't S. He was trying to make it look like Larry wanted to S, but he really was looking to kill. That's literally what she said. I'm trying to think, because she didn't say a lot of them. I'm trying to think of the specific Google searches he had. One was like, what is the, fastest way to die, or like shot to the heart, fastest way to die, something like along those lines. And there was a few. Okay. So yeah, everybody was like gasping. They did not like that sex slave thing. That's just notable. That was the first time everybody or anybody made a sound. A Christmas conversation with Larry, his friend testified to, went like this. I want to get the other guy. The cops will be all over my house. I have to plan it well. Bowles says his plan went from trying to keep her to deciding he had to kill her. The only way he could keep his wife was to kill her. He called it love, but it was not love. He wanted injury, compliance, subservience. It's about what he wants. And then she was like, kind of switched gears. She was like, say what you want about Frank Peavy, the spellcaster, but he flew from Maine, all the way from Maine for us. That's how she's talking. And she says, he's, a very unconventional person, but he was a very genuine person. Larry was, and, she's talking about how we can trust his testimony. She says, Larry was so relentless with requests that even this really nice guy, Frank Peavy, had to cut Larry off, because he eventually did block Larry because Larry was messaging him too much. Okay. As time went on, nothing worked anymore. He was able to control May for a very long time, but he had to resort to his ultimate plan, should he run out of options. She says the spellcaster messages are the most damning evidence. I had the pool notes for this, and somebody else said this too, that Larry might have been crying at this point. He asked the bailiff for tissues, and it just looked like his eyes were wet. That's what was told to me. I talked to other people, a couple other people who did not see it, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. I don't think the pool reporter would report that unless he really was sure. So I should probably explain the pool reporter. Really nice guy. He was chosen by the group of media because he takes really good notes. So he was doing a live Google document of notes, so people who were not in the courtroom could have all the notes for stuff that was going on and everything it said. And that was very useful, because sometimes in the overflow room, it didn't, the audio was not good. more spell casting messages. Please keep her sick until she realizes we will be the only ones who will be there forever. She talks about a bunch more where he wants her to be sick and to punish her. He wants her to feel pain when, she thinks about cheating. He is capable of wanting her to be dead, to be killed, because he cannot fathom a life without her, Bowles says. These are the horrible things, meanwhile, that May is telling Larry. May is telling him, we are done. We can do this. We can co-parent. We can still be good. So that's sarcastic. Okay, this was an interesting argument here. I'll just read it. Bowles reads messages of Larry where he's negotiating with a spellcaster on price, and he says, okay, maybe another time. I want to try to fix my family myself first. Bowles says to keep in mind that as we get into December messages at the very end, he was saying things like, please hex her with a sickness that would incapacitate her. Not until the requirements are met will this hex be lifted, when she realizes she loves the family and children. And so she's saying that he wanted to just fix his family first, and that was his way of he was going to fix it. Bowles describes when one spellcaster says that Larry overpaid, and the spellcaster says that he could either hex May 30 times or refund Larry, and Larry chose to hex May 30 times. Talking about the urgency, talking with so many spellcasters, he said to one of them, a month for a recast will be too late. On January 5th, he said, please, it's reached its critical point. He was pleading with spellcasters. I'll read the quote again. The spell that he requested was, make her love and lust for me for all eternity, until she is on her deathbed, till death do us part. So then we went on a break. And then, Bowles is still going. And she says, she brings up spell casting messages again. I think, she really heavily relied on those. The whole trial, really. Because it's, to her, what she's presenting, and I'm not like disagreeing with it or agreeing. It's like, she's saying, like, we don't need a mind reading machine. That is Larry's thoughts. Like, it's important. That is my interpretation. Okay. Spellcasting messages. Please help. It's not manifesting soon enough. Please do whatever it takes. Can you give her COVID? And that was January 7th. He started spellcasting, basically, like early in the morning. He also purchased a diagnosis to see whether May had another hex on her from someone else. And Bowles said that shows that the urgency is at a peak level. He messaged the spellcaster, she needs to be stopped. She is out of my control. Larry was contacting spellcasters even right before May walked in the home in the afternoon for the last time. She said, the type of violence that occurs in this case often happens behind closed doors. And that's what we have in this case. I can't tell you how he did it. Sorry, my tweet is cut off. But I'm pretty sure she said, it could have been poison. It could have been maybe like strangulation. Almost done with hers. Thanks for your help was the last spellcaster message on January 8th in the early morning hours, like 2 a.m. And he... Okay. Then one spellcaster had replied on January 7th that he did find a hex. He did the diagnosis and he found a hex on May. And Larry then on January 8th said if he can move the hex from May to Jamie Laird. Bowles then says because May's not a problem for him anymore. She mentioned the unaccounted mileage, the 444 miles. I don't want to get into like all of that and say anything wrong, but it's basically they suggest that this Colorado River Reservation, Lake Havasu, the Grand Canyon was where the family would often go and, you know, camp, hang out. They were outdoorsy. And so it was a familiar area to Larry. And there's like 444 missing miles. And then it's like 222 miles to get there. And so it's like it would add up. So she talks about how that is important on January 8th when Larry was gone all day for 11 hours. And she says, May has slept on his bed for all eternity. She will be his wife for all eternity. She talks about the poison a little bit, and it's just kind of stuff we already know. She says you don't have to agree whether there was poisoning. All you have to do is agree that he committed an act to kill her. She says there has to be some proof that a crime was committed, and I will submit to you that this was not an accident. May did not commit S, and her death can be attributed to the conduct of another person. Yeah, also Sabatini was kind of, I didn't write this because it's really hard to like type everything, as much words as I can and tweet, like post things. So I didn't get all of it, but I wrote here a fourth Sabatini objection occurs. And there were 3 during that, I don't really know. It was like improper argument, basically. And on the 4th time, it was sustained. And she was citing a case. Bowles was talking about case law. And like when it was sustained, Bowles looked like so confused. She like turned her head away from the judge and was like what? And I think that threw her off, honestly. And then, she's trying to finish up. She has to switch gears. She says, bodies do not hide themselves. The fact that May Millete's body cannot be found is evidence of his pre-planning, and it is also suppression of evidence. So those are things that are important for like what counts would, like the charges and what the jury sees in jury instructions. So that's why she was kind of like talking about case law. But you can't do that apparently. So then Bowles put up this video of the Lexus, Larry's black Lexus, backing into the garage or whatever, like backing up all weird. And you've seen it, I'm sure, at 6 a.m., January 8th. She goes through it again. She's narrating, and the sound doesn't work. And she is frustrated, doesn't know what to do. They can't fix it at that point. But she's like, when you watch this back in the jury room, like, please watch it. You're gonna hear a dragging sound. Like, right now the sound is not working, but when Larry is behind the Lexus, you're going to hear the sound of something being dragged. And you can't see Larry, you can't see that. You just know the Lexus is backed up and he's back there and there's a sound like dragging. Sabatini objected to facts not in evidence, but it was overruled. And then she basically started to finish up. She said, all you have to do is circle the word guilty and choose the level of degree. Bowles says that the jury should find Larry guilty of first degree M. And she says, you know, Maya has missed so much of her kids' lives, all the birthdays that they've missed in the 5 years it's been. She talks about how May would have missed significant events like teaching her oldest to drive. She says Maya wouldn't miss all of that. We know the last moments of her life were worrying about these kids and keeping them safe. You know why he did it. You just don't know how he did it. The law does not reward a killer for successfully hiding a body. You don't need a body to know what happened. Maya Millete is dead, and Larry Millete is guilty. That was it. That was it for the day. So that was the prosecution closing details. I mean, arguments. Why did I say details? All right, so now I'm looking for the defense. Here we go. I did not stay for the rebuttal. So there was a defense closings, and I actually got to be in the courtroom because I got there so early. And there was less people in the line, like on Wednesday. So, yeah, I didn't stay for rebuttal because the heavy vibe, the energy, the courtroom was worse than the overflow. It was a lot. It's just a lot to take in. And I am like an empath and I just absorb people's feelings, and it was really feeling heavy. And I just wanted to be with my kids, and I thought, you know, Maya, like, all she wanted to be with her kids. So, oh, I gotta fix my TikTok here. Oh, I can't drag this puzzle piece. Okay, I guess it's ending. Sorry, TikTok. I cannot do this little puzzle. What the heck? Okay. It says it's wrong. Okay, whatever. TikTok is ending. Come to YouTube, everyone. I apologize. So I thought Maya can't be with her babies, but right now all I want is to be with my babies. So I am going home and I just can't live tweet the rebuttal. But I did the defense closing. I saw it in the courtroom, and I have that for you. Okay. So that was on Wednesday, the defense closings, and then Bowles' rebuttal, which went over stuff like we already know, but she, from what I have been told, did an excellent job, like, refuting the defense closing. It was good, and obviously it worked. Okay. Finding where to start. Miss Sabatini is up for the defense. She's beginning a very casual way of talking. She says she doesn't have a PowerPoint like Bowles, and she just wants to talk story like she says they did in jury selection. I mentioned earlier, she said from, you know, where she's from, that's what they're like. They're like, just, you know, talk story, like, just chill and conversate. She says that a trial is like, oh my god, okay, I'm gonna mispronounce this. Sabatini said that a trial is like Ho'oponopono. And I know the word and I know how to write it, but I don't know how to say it. I can't do it, and I really greatly apologize. But she said it was like and it's a Hawaiian tradition of reconciliation. And she said that that's a trial, basically what they're doing here. And it's like, talking and then like all coming together and like deciding. She says that's kind of what that is like. I don't know enough about it to really talk much about it, but she said that. And then she said that she wants to take a moment to honor Maya Millete as well. She said there's nothing in the defense strategy trying to disparage or disgrace Maya Millete at all. And then she was like, also, like the family is grieving, like Maya's family is grieving, but also like Larry's grieving. She was like, please keep that in mind that May is gone. Like that's a fact, and we don't know what happened, but like Larry is grieving. And she said that all the defense case is meant to do is to contextualize all the evidence that, Bulls brought in, and she wants to contextualize it as Larry's experience, that we need to think about that. Not just how things look, contextualize things, and experience is the word she used. I can see one juror who's already not having any of this. There was a juror who just, I mean, at least they didn't have to sit through like closing arguments all for like one day or something, and the defense, like, it was at the end and really long. But I think people are just over, they just want to be done. And this juror was just like kind of not into it. I could tell that she wasn't buying what Miss Sabatini was selling, and Sabatini had just started. Okay. Also, there were some jurors who were watching Larry Millete pretty closely. Sometimes they would, look at Sabatini, but then kind of like drift over and look at Larry for a little bit. Some of them would like stare at him for a while. Larry was sitting, at the defense table, which is the farthest away from the jury. Miss Sabatini's standing and just talking to the jury at a podium with a microphone. Bowles always likes to have a lapel mic and walk around, but Sabatini likes the podium. And Larry was just kind of like looking over towards Sabatini, like just kind of like his head, his chin's a little raised, right? Like my computer's down, but it's just like a little bit up, watching very closely. What did I say? Larry is watching Sabatini closely. Okay. She talks about how Sabatini, all right? Sabatini talks about how the defendant always has the presumption of innocence, and she clarifies that rather the presumption is not guilty. The presumption of innocence in common sense terms assumes the best and not the worst in a human being. Sabatini says that kindness matters is a sign on the freeway that she drives by sometimes, and it makes her emotional every time she drives by. And then she brought up Frank Peavy, the spellcaster, who he talked about kindness and how the magic he practices is about kindness. It's done with kindness, white magic, he was saying. I find it interesting, now that I'm thinking about it, that of all the 60 witnesses, how both sides chose to highlight Frank Peavy. I mean, he was my favorite witness too. It was just interesting to hear him. Um, a real spellcaster who communicated with Larry. It was very interesting. But I don't know. That's kind of weird, huh? Okay. She talks about how sometimes we have biases that cloud our judgment or create blind spots. She said, it's okay to have them. I talked in jury selection about my hatred of the Dodgers. I will always love the Padres, even though they're in a losing streak right now. That was meant to be light and funny, lighthearted, but it's in any of Sabatini's. Usually, she can get the jury or the gallery, whatever, the witness, to kind of, if something happens, a lighthearted moment, she can make a joke, Like, usually that goes over well. Not today. Not during closings. There was no, like, chuckles or anything like that. So, yeah, talks about biases. She says that whatever it is Larry appears to be, the lens that has been cast upon him is that he is homicidal. Feelings are not facts. My truth is going to be different from your truth. Your lens really dictates your reality. If you start from a lens that Mr. Millete is guilty, you're going to find him guilty. You have to start with the presumption that he is innocent. When you make a decision in a criminal trial and the decision is guilty, you cannot ever come back to the courtroom doors and pound and say, I want to change my mind. If you are like, I think it's him, I feel like it's him, think, did they prove it to you? Not with your feelings, but with facts. She said, if you have any questions about his guilt, that's reasonable doubt, and we aren't going to question your reasoning. Then she was like, there's no burden shifting. And she's like, we don't have to prove anything because that's all on the prosecution. I know you didn't hear from Larry, she said. He didn't take the stand, but you did hear a lot of his statements in the messages. And everything that he said comes in for the truth of the matter. You can consider it differently than Mrs. Millete's state of mind statements. So when we have Maya's messages and writings, it's for state of mind. That's the jury instruction. But Larry's statements comes in for the truth of the matter. But she said he didn't make those statements in a vacuum. And she said that he was going through some life stuff. Some jurors are fidgeting a little bit, but overall they look very engaged. Larry Millete just was still, like the whole time. Then we kind of went through how, the different charges, the different, lesser includeds and everything and what they mean. She says almost every piece of evidence in this case is circumstantial. She says this is someone's life, and she points to Larry and says, that man. She says, let's talk about him. Larry Millete was born in the Philippines. So was Maya Millete. She talked about how they got married young in Hawaii, and they were a Navy couple, and they had about 20 years of marriage. Then she goes into how 2020 was tough for everybody. And she says having young kids, having all these personal issues, and the world kind of shutting down made for a really tough year. And Larry and I were going through some stuff when, life is already hard. I don't know what that means. I'm going to scroll. Some of my tweets, I feel like a word like got autocorrected, and I'm kind of confused, which is unfortunate. But when you're just like typing, it's really hard. I don't type like this, by the way. I don't have my keyboard like way up here. I just showing you. I have a little iPad. Well, I have my iPad, and it has a keyboard also. And yeah, that's how I tweet so fast and get all the notes. Okay. She says that they're going through all this and nobody really wanted to help Larry except Genesis. And she said maybe the reason Larry is acting this way is because he notices his wife is acting different. She says Larry found out about the affair when he was pulled into the meeting at Maya's boss's office due to the phone calls from Jamie's mother-in-law. She says Larry Millete was gaslit into thinking he himself was crazy. Larry doesn't know what's going on, and he's hearing this from somebody's mother-in-law. She said you get different versions of 2020 from all the different friends and family. She said the narrative that May is giving friends is not being investigated. The two friends who didn't know about the affair didn't know everything. She says he's villainized and he's made to be the bad guy. She says, I'm not saying you might agree with how he handled all of this information, but he was experiencing heartbreak and betrayal while he was being gaslit. It clearly was an ambush for Larry. He asks for help. Okay. While it's being cast as exposing May, he was trying to keep it in the family and ask them for help. She said, did he coercively control May? How do we know he did that? We have a person carrying out an affair with another person for an entire year. How are you able to do that if you're being controlled? If you tell your friends you're afraid he's going to hurt your kids, why did you move out without them? She never told her family that she was afraid he was going to hurt the kids. She said, I posit to you that it's because her family would never believe that, because they saw what kind of father he was. I wrote, the jurors are still engaged, but some don't seem to be buying that. That's just the vibe I got. And some, are glancing over at Larry. She said it's possible for people to be writing in a journal for an audience. There are people that do that. And there was a couple sighs from jurors. I'm pretty sure it came from the jurors. They were kind of like, really? Like, and I even kind of thought that was I don't know. Like, she starts with how she doesn't want to disparage May. That's the whole, way that it starts. But then to like imply that and kind of imply like a Gone Girl situation, the jurors didn't like that, obviously. And I think I'm right because of the way they voted. So, like, I don't know if jurors were like offended by that, but I think it's possible. Maybe they just thought it was a stupid argument. She said, we actually have no proof of domestic violence. She said, there is no playbook for heartbreak. He was doing everything in his wheelhouse he could to try to cope and get through this and save his marriage. Sabatini says that the divorce threat from Maya was constantly dangled in front of Larry. Then she says all the S searches that were on Larry's computer were all homicidal, according to the prosecutor. And she says To say a man who is at his lowest is somehow homicidal is outrageous. He needed help. That's how she says it. That's my impression. I don't think that anyone saw it as outrageous. There was no reaction there. Jurors do seem engaged. Bowles was leaning back in her chair, just straight chilling. She's so close to Sabatini. She was right behind her. But at the beginning, Bowles was kind of like annoyed. But then she kind of just got like, just kind of, like done. Like she's like, I know how this is. I know how it's going to go. Okay. Yeah, so I'm just like gonna quote, but like don't think that I'm saying any of this. Because she can say she was not disparaging Maya, but some of the stuff she says is kind of. So she talks about the door incident. She says that May is pissed. She actually said that pretty powerfully. She was like, May is pissed. The kids are trying to get in the door. And she said that it was the witnesses that talked about that incident are carefully curated, and that there's a natural desire to try to cover it up. And it's being spun to create this narrative of Larry's guilt. She says he was also being abused. She says that we have testimony from the therapist Maya saw that proves it. She was talking about things that, I don't know. She mentioned it like really quickly, some examples. It was hard to get it down. But she's saying Maya did like similar things and like was gaslighting, and there was like emotional. Can I say that word either? But yeah. She says Larry is the villain. Larry is the problem. Whatever he's saying, don't believe it. He's crazy. She says that is the narrative, and the family and friends are wearing armor and, trying to hide things. Larry is misguided, Sabatini says, but that he wasn't wrong. He tracked Maya. He was right. She was with Jamie Laird. He wanted the information. He just wanted to know what was going on. Then on the getting the other guy quotes, she said, did you hear that any of those family members warned May? Maya's brother and father testified that multiple times Larry wanted to talk about hurting Jamie Laird. Sabatini says that doesn't really prove much of anything, except Larry was desperate to get to the root of the problem. He even said it. Look at Mills' comments. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think Bull's closing was better. I'm just gonna say it. Like, I respect them as lawyers, but some of this I just think was in bad taste, and that's just my opinion, okay? So, yeah. She's really trying to just unvillainize Larry or expose the narrative here, I guess. She says, Larry is the type of person who overshares if you have not figured that out. That was also supposed to be like kind of a joke, but that didn't go over. No one chuckled. The trip to Glamis, where Maya said, if anything happens to me, it's Larry, on that subject, Sabatini said that this was Maya going to her family and telling them to pick her side. She also points out that it cannot be considered for the truth of the matter. Jurors are still engaged. Larry has still not moved. And Mr. Ryan seemed to be observing the jury. He did. He totally did. He was looking forward. The way he sits at the defense table, he was looking and just watching. Actually, gosh, that must be why he was sitting. Okay, so the defense table was always during the whole trial Sabatini, and then Larry, and then Mr. Ryan over on the end, like at the head of the table. I bet he was watching the jury the whole entire time. It seemed like he was always just like writing stuff down, like always typing and listening, and I guess taking a lot of notes. I don't know. He was always looking at his laptop. But I think that's why he sat there, because the prosecution like saw it normally. I think there was room for the three of them. That just occurred to me. All right. So then she said, what people don't realize is that you are gaslighting your husband behind closed doors. But she said he's really respectful, he's calm, he's apologetic. That's what people say about Larry Millete. She said that's what the witnesses said, and that, yeah, she's really pushing the gaslighting narrative. Sabatini says that there's a background to everything Larry Millete is doing and saying. She says that the financial abuse didn't really exist, and it was throwing spaghetti at the wall. At this point, Bowles was like, she's just so done. We don't have any evidence of financial abuse. Someone who has credit cards getting paid off every month is not someone who is being financially abused. Yeah, seriously, don't quote me for that. That's what Bowles said, or Sabatini says. Sabatini says that it is common sense that May, who clearly asserts independence, is not being someone who's pulled down and victimized. She cites that she was able to carry on an affair and that she had credit cards with, being paid off. Larry's paying them off every month. She talks about how there was like no messages on Maya's iCloud, and that, she seemingly deleted things. And she said that we need to remember to compare how that's viewed with Larry deleting things. There was a juror who I could see moving their head occasionally. Like, it was hard to see every single one, but I could see a little movement. It seemed like they were nodding, I think, sometimes. So then we talked about the timeline. She says the affair never stopped, even though Jamie's wife got pregnant. Sabatini makes a joke about being stuck at home Christmas break with 3 kids and a fighting couple, but it didn't really land. She talks about how the holidays are stressful, and that's the context. We've got holidays, this affair, and then we see actual moves by May. She was pushing Larry away more and more, and Larry increased his efforts to keep her. Sabatini says that Maya and Jamie deleted their fusion chats, which was like a chat at work that merged with Microsoft Teams. And so we don't have those messages. She's talking about deleting things more. She says, what if in one of these situations, that Larry deleted stuff, he had a shame spiral, and he was kind of like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Oh. And then she says maybe it was him coming out of a mood. He was like having a mental health thing, and then he would delete stuff because he was regretting things. I saw a... Oh, hi. Hello. Thanks for coming. It's okay. You can replay. You can replay all this, guys, on YouTube. Okay. So she suggests things that, she says it's context, but she also just kind of like is explaining like why Larry might do these things. So putting that, or trying to put doubt in jurors' heads, I think is what's happening here. And I'm just explaining that so you can kind of understand, because I'm obviously not doing the closings like word for word, and I just want you to kind of understand how it felt, how it seemed, the flow. Then she talked about how when Maya and Jamie were in the truck and he caught them together, she said, "Is that not the time to snap? When the husband literally catches his wife in the truck?" She says that Larry should have snapped then, but he was just calm and brought her home, basically, and there's testimony that he was just calm and he hadn't snapped then. I know it's Carla, I can see. Yeah. Hi. Thanks for coming. Kind of losing my voice a little bit. I always do around this time. We get to like an hour and a half in, and it starts going. Okay, where was I? Sabatini brings up that we know Larry helped Maya when she had trouble with her like pregnancy ending situation, termination, and that he took her to the doctor. And she says that he was forgiving her and he was not hell-bent on killing her. He was stuck on being with his wife no matter what. Sabatini says that if Larry had been planning all along to murder Maya, it would be idiotic to call Jamie's wife, who was a cop, 2 days before, and to keep calling her enough to get blocked by her. Sabatini discusses how Maya called Larry crazy to Mrs. Laird, but that Maya also refused any services from James' wife, Mrs. Laird. Like, she is law enforcement, and she's like, is your wife, like, or is your husband, like, really crazy? Like, do you need, like, protection? Like, and she said no. She said no. So she's using that. Do you know when that was? When the pregnancy ending thing, I don't know in the timeline when that was. Somebody in the chat might know. There's a lot of things, like so much, so I'm not sure. Because it also wasn't set up ever as like a fact. No one testified like that she had that. There was just always like, it was references to that she had it. And so yeah, that's how we know, I guess, because people in messages would be like, and she even had a pregnancy termination. Larry would always say that to spellcasters. Yeah. So then we went on a break, and Sabatini comes back and says that was halftime, and I was like, oh God, how long is this gonna be? Like, I was like, really? Is this gonna take the whole morning? And it did. I just really thought it'd be shorter. Their opening was shorter. She says Larry turned to the internet to get help, and she starts talking about spells, and she says they do tell us about his mindset, but we have to keep in mind that all the language that he provides for the spells seems to mirror the types of spells and their language in the like advertisement for them. So she's positing that Larry was just mirroring, using the same kind of like, she suggests like the word obey wasn't like Larry's. It was kind of like the spell he was buying was like to obey, and so then he writes what he wants, right? And she says that he's just using that kind of language. Yeah. I don't know about that, Mel and Terry. I don't know, because it was very vague. It was very vague. Okay, sorry. She says he's not actually trying to make his wife his sex slave. This is what the language of these spells he's ordering is like. She says that it's not great that Larry ordered, or wanted Maya to be sick. She's like, that's not great, She's like that. Larry Millete is still eyes locked on Sabatini, looking thoughtfully. Yeah, he really didn't react. He was just the whole time like, that was pretty much it. And I was like looking around the whole time. She said, everything that Larry said in those spells is protected by the First Amendment. That's free speech. And he was saying it to these people, all these spellcasters, and nobody reported him. None of that happened. There was more sighs. It might have been from the gallery, but I don't know. And then she said, he's pouring his heart out to these spellcasters, and people are finally validating him. She says that the spellcasters were the only ones believing and listening to Larry. And then she says they're predatory because, they're just listening, and then they do, she's implying it's make believe. She used that term once. And she said that they would even charge $5.99 to ship a spell, something that you're not shipping. There was a $5.99 charge. So she brought that up. Was there proof he took her to the doctor? No, I don't think so. I can't read everything, although it was, I got a lot of quotes that are interesting. So she says he has the ability to be self-aware enough that he was bombarding Frank Peavy with his thoughts. He deeply wanted to see improvement in his marriage. And Frank Peavy said, I always found him to be a sweet person, to be honest. She says that it's a leap to even believe that anything would result in the spells in the first place. She's saying that the prosecution is not entitled to so many leaps. Then she talks about why would he cooperate so much with law enforcement. She says his sense of pride was stripped from him. This man was broken down. The broken down man is not capable of pulling off a red rum without a trace. This is a messy man who's messy and emotional. This is a messy red rum. She says that the bangs are speculation, and you have to assume that those even come from the Millete home. She says, why are they throwing this evidence out at you? It's distraction. It's spaghetti. The wall is getting full of spaghetti. That's what she said. Good quote. Sabatini says that the prosecution cannot actually say that there's no way Maya could have gotten out of the house. She says, we have absolutely no way. None. We don't know what happened to Maya. Then she talks about, very sarcastically, she's like, then they bring up this Colorado River reservation, and neither Maya nor Larry ever Googled that, or they just came up with that. She says you can't prove he was ever there because there's no cell site, and it's just like random is kind of what she's implying. She's talking about maybe Larry went to the Grand Canyon because May wanted to go there for her 40th birthday. She says what we think and what we feel is much different than what the state has to prove. And then I wrote, jurors still engaged. Sabatini is an engaging speaker. And then I wrote, juror just looked at clock. So they were engaged, and then another moment they're like, the clock, it started to wane, kind of. She said, "This is a person who cannot win in the prosecution's eyes." She tried to make another joke. She like goes to the podium. I mean, she's at the podium, but she's like, kind of taps it a little bit like this. She's like, "I want to talk about the hemlock. This is a silly theory." That's what she said. Like that. She says that like there were house searches, but they didn't find the vials until October 2021 when Larry was arrested. And she says to remember that the plant is abundant and you can find hairy fleabane or hemlock really anywhere in San Diego. The searches in May don't attribute to a red rum weapon in October, Sabatini says. She just repeats that this theory is silly. She says that someone who would hide a body this well would not leave the red rum weapon in his house on the shelf. Bowles at this point was looking down at her laptop. I thought that maybe at this point Larry looked a little red, like maybe a little bit, a little flushed. She says there's no indication the poisoning actually took place. The DA literally doesn't know if this even happened, and they don't know if May is even dead. She says, "We're not here to say that Mrs. Millete abandoned her family, and I don't even know if that's the most reasonable conclusion. But we don't know. What's more reasonable? If the strongest argument is guilt, if there's another reasonable conclusion that points to innocence, well, there you have it." Judge Camarena at this point was like just a little bit of a head tilt. It's like, listening like that. She talked about Jamie Laird a little bit. She had to be careful to not like point the finger, but she did say he cheated on his wife when she was pregnant. He never responded to the last message that May sent to him, and that like May even got a tattoo of his bracelet. She said this was not just a flame, this was a real relationship. She says it's not the defense's job to speculate or find the explanation or suggest one. She says that it's hard to not have an explanation. She knows that the jury is like wanting an explanation. She says that the prosecution wants us to believe that Larry is a messy, emotional person who does things clinically, and it defies logic. We are here to figure out the truth, and the only truth that matters now is yours. She's winding up. She says, "We would love a unanimous decision by all of you, but if not, that's okay. And now it's your turn to sort this out. It's your theories, your reasoning, your questioning, your conclusions." She says May Millete was a human being, but so is Larry Millete. She says to not let the prosecution shift their burden. She asked for a not guilty verdict, and then, it was done. So then I was done for the day after that. That was a lot for me. And then it was rebuttal, of course, after lunch. And then the next day was the first full day of deliberations. So they were able to decide a lot of their like own things. They set their schedule. They even had decided that they weren't going to meet on Fridays because that was left up to them. The judge explained all this, and they decided that ahead of time. But then they didn't even need to. I don't know if they just like wanted to get all the ground rules like settled. But yeah, we knew ahead of time there wasn't going to be court Friday, so I went to the courthouse on Thursday, and I went late in the morning. It was pretty quiet, a few media, not much going on. I milled about, didn't really notice much, didn't see a lot of people. And then I went to take care of some errands and made sure to stay within like 15 minutes, because I was going to get, as media, I was going to get like an email that let us know when there was a verdict or a jury question. So I wanted to stay close to home, so I did. And I came home even and took off my nice court clothes, but I left my hair and everything. Like, I was like, I'll be ready to go. I was like, had everything else ready. I was like ready to jump. But I didn't think there would be a verdict that day. I was talking to a member of the public, and we had thought that maybe Monday would be when they would come back, that they would sit on it for the weekend. And if we theorized that if they had already scheduled, Friday to be off, they must be thinking it's going to be a while. And I thought it would be. I know a lot of people like want to hear like my opinion, and that's not like what I usually just report the facts. But a little bit of my opinion is that I thought it would take a while. I really did, because it's a long trial. And also with all those lesser included charges, which I think when you look at a jury verdict form, it can be confusing, it can be overwhelming. In the Karen Reed trial, we saw like it be a whole disaster because it wasn't exactly written to make sense. And so I just thought it would be a while, but I was prepared, and thank goodness I was prepared, because between 2 and 3, I got the notice that there was a verdict. So I just threw on my dress. I, got the kids handled with the neighbor, and then I just grabbed my little bow bag, headed out. I got there in 15 minutes. There was slightly more traffic than there was before. And then I got there before like cameras were like really setting up. So that was good. I didn't want to be on camera. I was like rushing. I told the story earlier in the stream that like I saw Bowles like right away looking stressed. And I was like, wow, I really got here fast. So I was really grateful for that. I went up to the 3rd floor where I guess I could like read my tweets, but I kind of just want to talk about the experience, if that's okay. Like, because that's what I did. Yesterday, I tweeted what was happening, but I remember it so freshly and vividly that I just want to kind of talk about the experience here, what it was like to be there at verdict day. I got the email that we had a verdict. It wasn't just like we have a, there might be a verdict, we have a jury note. There was a verdict. And the whole courthouse just was buzzing with so much anticipation. And then I would say the vibe, the feelings, it all kind of just like added up. As more people arrived, it's like the vibe, the energy grew more and more. It grew so big. There was so many feelings, so many people, so many people that were there for different reasons. There was like the entire DA's office. There was federal agents. There was members of the public who, wanted to observe. There were people who were on the search team, lots of family and friends. Not all of Maya's family. I don't know. I don't think Larry had much family there. Maya's family, not all of them could make it down in time. Like the verdict was read like pretty quickly. So they didn't all make it, sadly. Did I go for the verdict reading? Yeah, that's what I'm getting to now. Okay, sorry. So we're getting there, and there's just so much going on. And I knew I wasn't going to get in the courtroom, so I just went down to the overflow, and that even was getting busy in the hallway, and I was worried. And the like Emily, the PR like lady who handles all the like admin stuff with this trial, she offered to put my bag in the overflow room. The attorneys, like the DA's office, were let in. And then she said the first 2 rows in the overflow room were going to be media, and she brought my bag in there for me, so I would for sure have a seat. And then I was like relieved, and I was trying to tweet as much as I could. We can see kind of like what I tweeted, because I wanted to keep people informed. More and more people just, were showing up. There was so much excitement. A lot of, okay, like I want to say this, a lot of love. Like you can sense how much people cared about each other, about everything, about, yeah, you know, just so much. There were people praying. There was security everywhere. There was like, I think some Chula Vista police. There was sheriff deputies everywhere. Some of the ones that usually work like in the front were like, you know, with us. Yeah, so I'm gonna look here and see. Oh yeah, I wrote that the cameras were on the families arriving. I heard that, and that they were very emotional, and I just feel like, just for the record, like I think that sucks that happened. Um, something like I'm not gonna do is talk about the family like all that much, because I think they deserve privacy. And only, I'm only gonna talk about like the speech they made and what they presented willingly. I just feel like them arriving to the courthouse, having the cameras on them right away, sucks. I just don't like that mainstream media. So let's see here. There are dozens of people here. Yep, there was. I didn't try to get in. Sorry, I got a weird text message about my daughter. Hold on, please hold. Please hold, don't leave. Just to play. Sorry, she's at a friend's house. I'm so sorry. This is about my daughter. Okay, let's get through this. Let's finish this. So we got in the room. I wrote, there's anticipation, yet sadness and anxiety. We got on the record. I could tell even like Judge Camarena kind of had like a very like rushed like tone. She was like, geez, I'm tired. He was like, okay, we're on the record. We've got the attorneys here, blah blah blah, and okay, so, and then he said that no outbursts, stuff like that, and if you can't like control yourself, like please leave now. No judgment, and it's just like, just please. Then they talked about how they were gonna, so the GUN charge that we talked about earlier in the stream, it was like bifurcated. So they talked about that, and it will be tried at a later date. Larry had to agree to that verbally. He spoke loudly and clearly. The overflow was good. The camera was on the defense table. You could see them. They moved the computer screen that always hides Larry's face, so we could actually see him. And the sound was good. So that was a blessing. That there wasn't a problem with that. And yeah, the overflow room holds like 100 people, and like It was not overflowing or anything, but it was mostly full. It was a lot of people. It was warm in there too. So then for a while, like everybody in the courtroom was standing, and then we were waiting for the jury, and then like it just took a while, so that was like really awkward. Then I saw that Larry was in a gray sweater. I wrote that. So if you wanted to know, because I usually do fashion, they weren't like in the maroon again. It was gray. Um, so then judge said there's zero tolerance for outbursts. Yep, you read that, Maggie. Larry Millete is looking straight at the judge with his hands at his side. Okay, this is what you want to know. He's like sitting at a table, right? And he's just looking at the judge, and like he has his hands like down, just like by his side, like not on the table. Couldn't see his hands at all. And he was just sitting like, kind of just literally the entire time the verdict was read, he was looking up at the judge, kind of like just eager, eyes fixed, stoic as always. Still, he's good at hiding his emotions or whatever. Okay, so then pretty quickly, they gave the verdict form to the judge. He said he reviewed it, and then they read it out, and I just had a feeling. So I wrote, "It is murder one," because I knew they were going to say it was not guilty or guilty, and I just had a feeling that I wanted to have that written out already so I could write guilty or not guilty and then move on to like murder two or something. But it was guilty. Oh, I keep saying the M word. Okay, sorry. Sorry, YouTube. But then it was guilty, so all I had to write was guilty, and then I tweeted it out like instantly. And I see no reaction on Larry's face or body. He was very still. Mr. Ryan, on the other hand, was kind of like just a very lowered head onto the desk. Not like flopping around, but he was like hanging his head. And I didn't really see Sabatini do too much either. So then a bunch of reporters left, and he was excusing the jury, the judge was. And I was like, oh, maybe I should go like try to find jurors. So I kind of like walked around, and I didn't know where they were going to come out and when, and I ended up giving my card to a few jurors. So I was able to do that. When the verdict was read, oh, I think my daughter's coming home. She's walking home from the neighbor. So if my daughter comes in, you might hear her. But when the verdict was read, it was like a I don't even know, like a volcano, like of emotion, right? Like it was all like building and bubbling, right? Like everybody wanted to know what the verdict was. So much emotion, all the feelings. And then it was Red Rum won, the best outcome if you are a Maya supporter, right? The worst outcome if you're a Larry supporter. And so both sides, I guess, if there's sides, it's like I just hate division. It's sad. It's really sad. It's come to that, but it's just so much different kinds of emotion, right? The most emotion. And I just want to be careful with what I say. I really mean this respectfully. I don't want to like ruin privacy or be too much. I just want to give everybody the facts and let you know what it was like there on verdict day. And then, there was people crying. I was afraid that since it's like technically a courtroom or whatever, like the overflow room, that security would be like, hey, stop it. But that didn't happen. People just like, oh, and relief. Relief was in the overflow room. That's what I experienced in the overflow room. I was out in the hallway then, like around the courthouse. I took the stairs. I was like going in the elevator and stuff. I met a 48 Hours producer. And then she tried to film some family members leaving, like Larry's parents leaving in that courthouse outside of the designated media area where the cameras were allowed. And then she got her phone like confiscated and they deleted everything. And then it was fine, but like, that happened. That was pretty weird. I couldn't believe that would happen to a 48 Hours producer, that they would do that. But then later, like, it's just, you forget. There was so much emotion. Like, it ended up laughing. Like, the court officers and stuff were like laughing. There's 48 Hours and Dateline, and it was definitely 48 Hours that had the phone taken. Yeah, it definitely was her. But they were. Did I say Dateline? No, I mean it was definitely 48 Hours, but Dateline was there too. There was so many media that were outside too, and like not like they're just filming the exit and they're filming everybody. And I'm in the background on stuff. It's like really hard not to be. If you want to be out there, like I was trying to like catch jurors leaving, listen to juror interviews that were happening, and it was hard not to be in the background of shots. So I'm kind of like, me and Mary Alice were hanging out, and we're in some of the videos. But I was just I wasn't trying to do juror interviews like right away. I wasn't going to do that. That's not me. I really wanted to just observe everything and get what I could. I did get a few, like, I don't know, juror quotes, I guess I could read that I overheard from interviews. There was a lot happening. It was a media circus. Yeah, she said that Larry disappearing was a big deal to them. One of the jurors did. She said the first thing they did was go through witnesses. They each got 3 minutes for a roundtable discussion, just little things like that. Yeah, so I just really wanted to tell everybody, and still tonight, that's what I'm doing. Like, I just want you to know what it was like. And it was a media circus, and there was like, I think 2 different news helicopters there was definitely at least CBS 8, and then I thought I saw another one that looked a little bit different. When Maya's family left, they were all, in the green, and they had like a t-shirt, to find her. And Maya's sister, Maricruz, did an interview. She said that she doesn't have like a big speech or anything, and it was just really genuine. She spoke very, that was on the news, so you can see it. I don't really need to say, but like the message that she conveyed that I think was the most important was that this is step 1, and step 2 is finding Maya. She said that she wanted to bring her home to her children with dignity. It was very emotional. She thanked Christy Bowles a lot. There was just so much going on, and I was kind of just trying to hear and see what was going on. Yeah, it was a lot of emotion. When Maya's family left, there was like clapping. I was wondering if they were, going to try to imply that he drove by the site where he left her on the way to the Grand Canyon. Yes, something like that. It's an implication, but yes, I think so. Um, let's see. Yeah, so multiple juror interviews, so many cameras, so many TV anchors. A lot of the members of the public, like trial watchers, did interviews. It was something, I don't know, like, just, you cannot even imagine what it's like, because it's just so much emotion. So that was what it was like. You know, Larry didn't react, and there's going to be sentencing July 20th. That's where we're at, and I'm going to continue to cover it. I'm going to, continue my coverage. I'm going to take all my tweets. I said this earlier. I'm going to take all my tweets, sign up for the newsletter, go to maggiewinterton.com. Each day I'm going to be sending out, like, so you can actually read if you need to get caught up on the case, like every day of what happened, all my live postings, even though it's not live. I'm going to continue to try to get information out there, is what I'm saying. And yeah, also possibly a juror interview is happening, sounds like. So I have to go get my daughter. Please put any questions in the comments and I'll get back to you. And that was it. It was just a lot. It was so much. Oh yeah, the defense lawyers left in a hurry. Both had sunglasses on inside, walking kind of like this, and it was like a paparazzi situation. And they were like, no, we're not talking right now, not today. So they didn't. So yeah, I gotta go, but sorry, it kind of ends a little bit like that. Thanks for being here, guys. Any questions? I hope that this sounded respectful, because that is truly my intention, is respectful content that tells San Diego what's going on. So thank you so much for tuning in. Have a good night, everybody, and a good weekend.